Good morning, Vietnam!
No.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love? Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love, because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. We can get on a plane and take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to disappear for a night, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Good morning, folks. Welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit, episode 160? 170? Yeah, episode 170. 169 was removed in the middle of the night after we recorded it. Or maybe it was removed before, but at 3:30 a.m. we were notified that it was in fact removed for talking about vaccination studies that are obviously not approved. The official explanation was that there was information that did not comport with the scientific consensus. And if you recall what we were talking about the study, the Cleveland study, and apparently that's not okay. All right. The only other thing we talked about was the Wuhan when it came to coronavirus. So I don't know where, that was all of it was in the context of survey results from the Public Polling Project. So, best not think for yourselves these days, folks. Best not think for yourselves. Join the locals community, peoplespundit.locals.com, peoplespundit.locals.com. And on that, you do have access to the banned episode 169. And I believe Facebook found nothing wrong with it. Facebook was like, it's a discussion. What the hell? But whatever. That's the way it is. Somebody obviously got triggered and reported it. And I'm not sure what makes them more angry, because this is my own personal hypothesis, my educated guess. Okay? The problem was not me talking about the vaccination study. The problem was me talking about the vaccination study in context of the survey results, because what our survey results showed, just like before the 2020 election, is that sometimes they cannot control the flow of information or what people think. And so many, or too many, other pollsters are willing to go along with their little narrative. And we won't. I have no other obligation but to the people and anybody, everybody. My obligation is not to a news organization. My obligation is not to a corporate client, Frank. My obligation is not to a university. My obligation is to the American public. I have been freed of the chains of media, university, corporate polling.
Shaming you.
It doesn't really matter. Shame away. Shame away. I really don't care. Sometimes there are results some of you are going to like. Sometimes there will be results some of you will not like. But that is the beautiful thing about what we have done here, which is that I will tell you either way. I will tell you either way. All right, speaking of results. And you know what? Speaking of censorship. Let's take a look. I tried to upload as many graphics as possible to talk about today. And by the way, Locals, People's Pundit, locals.com, you have the crosstabs for everything except for the other parts of Biden's approval. The reason why Biden's approval about the cyber attacks is on there right now and nothing else is, I did it for War Room yesterday, so it was already done. But it also was important because it helps to understand why Biden's approval rating fell. Because if I didn't add that question, I would be completely stumped as to why he fell. He's still doing pretty good on coronavirus. He even ticked up a little bit on the economy, even though people aren't feeling so great about it. There's some weird results. And I would have said, why did he fall from a high of now? It was 46 for a hot minute there. Why did he fall? But it was 54 in our last one, right? 54 or 56, if it last publicly. But it was as high as 56 with what we have been doing. And why is it now down 4.5 points? It's going to come in around 51.5, just for everyone who wants to know, 51.5. And I would not have known. I would have been completely stumped. I really think that I added this question because it's impossible to assume there's no blowback from having no gas from Texas to the eastern seaboard. And you can see where, we're going to go over by region too, and when we do, you're going to see that almost no area of the country, almost no region of the country has a majority approval rating of Joe Biden except for the Northeast, which is about 17 or 16 maybe percent of the poll. They are falling as a percentage of their... I know a lot of pollsters still keep them at 17, 19%. There is simply no justification in the voter file for that. It's an economically depressed area of the country. Outside of New York City, there's not that much of a population. Regionally, the population is growing in the South and in the West. And the Midwest and the Northeast are declining as a share of the population. The voting population, voting eligible population. So the Northeast is like gangbuster for Joe Biden. Outside of a couple states. One, maybe two. And that's what's dragging his approval rating up. Because everywhere else, the Midwest, high to mid 40s from the South to the Midwest and the West. Even the West, including California. It's really incredible. Is very divided on Joe Biden, if not underwater. It's really incredible. It tells you how deeply, deeply divided we're becoming. Even more so than the era of Barack Obama and Donald Trump. I got news for everybody. And one thing that is making a lot of people uncomfortable is their inability to speak their mind. And it's quite appropriate that this happened to us yesterday or 2 days ago when we actually put this in the survey. Given everything you might have heard about social media bans, cancel culture, or political correctness, social media bans, and cancel culture, which would you say comes closer to your view? And here we have it. By the way, I finally figured out with MarketSite how to put the entire answer, so all of my lovely critics can see exactly how it's worded. They are too often used to crush dissenting views and represent a grave threat to free speech. The prompt, as those who join our Zoom calls, the prompt, they know, includes language from social media terms of use. which took it straight from Jack Dorsey. And the second choice is they are used largely to ensure a civil society and debate, whatever. And free speech should be limited if it hurts someone's feelings. If you think that's not the language that's used, you're nuts. We weren't being overly, zealous here. This is what they say. It's violence if it hurts somebody's feelings. 56% say these bans, etc., represent a grave threat. We use that language on purpose because we wanted to know how many people think it's really, really serious. A grave threat to free speech, 56%. Less than a quarter of the country, 23%, think that they are to ensure a civil society and debate. Another 2 in 10, roughly, have no opinion. And we're going to get into that next week. We're going to drill down into the social desirability bias indicators, and we're going to see what's what there. Look at it by party. Apparently, and this is not, look, I'm showing you numbers here. This isn't partisan, what I'm going to be talking about today. The comments I'm going to make today are not partisan. When we get to the Second Amendment and everything, you're going to see something. Apparently, a majority of Democrats do not believe in free speech. Now, are there more Democrats who do? Yeah. Well, are we supposed to give them a trophy for +6? A plurality of +6? A quarter of Democrats in this country don't know what their position is on free speech? Is that for real? They're the partisans. Republicans are partisans. I'm not surprised when I see independents say, I don't really know either. You would expect that. Independent and third party people are not as partisan. But you're telling me 4 in 10 Americans, 4 in 10 identified Democratic voters don't support free speech in this country? You're going to see I don't want to get ahead of myself. But I bet 35% who do would be shocked to hear that. This is why I tell people all the time, do not put the voters of a party, either one, in the same basket with those who speak for them in a public forum. The politicians. In the Democratic case, it's the media. The media is the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party is the media. They are interchangeable. One calls the shots over the other, that's true, but they are interchangeable. I'm talking about the political class itself. Same goes for Hillary Clinton and her basket of deplorables. I am willing to bet that 35% who told us, the 41% who told us that they do think it's a grave threat to free speech would be shocked that they were not a majority in their own party. You understand what I'm saying? 4 in 10 Democrats see it's a threat or a grave threat. That's how they view it. I bet anything. I would bet the farm that if we followed up and said, we couldn't. It's not possible because we don't know the results until we process the data. But if we could, maybe next time we could say, last time we asked, and this is what we found. Are you aware? Are you surprised? What's your reaction to that? I'm a little bit stunned. Maybe it's the generation I come from, but this is upside down, Laura. Mm-hmm. The liberals were the one who protected everybody's speech. This is totally backward. And now I'm not surprised we found this. I'm just saying it has to be discussed. It has to be discussed. How is it that a majority of Republicans and independents and third-party voters view this to be, and now it doesn't help them, it hurts them. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So the handicap, The construct, the social construct that's created by social media and the entertainment industry. This construct that uses these tactics is helping Democrats. So I understand that it would be a little bit different for them. 35% are loving it. And they're like, you know what? Yeah, persecute people. As long as I get the W. Make no mistake, that's what's going on there. Or they're more concerned about their feelings than free speech because they don't have a fundamental understanding of the purpose of free speech. Which, as the Supreme Court has said many times, as the founders laid out, it's not to protect your feelings, and it's not to protect popular or comfortable speech and ideas. It's to protect unpopular ideas. Unpopular ideas that in their day were revolutionary and dangerous. I mean, this is what leads now to the other crazy things that we see in education. All right. And we got a lot to cover here, so I'm going to just bang out a lot of these as we go. All right. But this is what leads to some of the problems. Look, yesterday, I heard a woman, it was North Carolina, a Middle Eastern woman who is a Christian, converted to Christianity, but her husband and children are still Muslim. Her family behind her in full support at the school district talking about critical race theory and other stuff in general. Just the stuff that had happened to her children that she had documented. She had the goods on these people, man. She had the goods. She had the names. She had the dates. She had been documenting it all for months. And stood up and said, as a taxpayer and as somebody who doesn't fit into your little box, I have a right to be heard. And so here she's, making her voice known that she's unhappy with critical race theory. She's unhappy with one of her teachers telling her children that he supported the execution of our former president. We're talking about secondary age children. And that went along with critical race theory, that went along with support for BLM, teaching them to hate the police. And they called her, she was naming them. On this date, so-and-so, Mr. So-and-so or Mrs. So-and-so said this, did this, and as a parent, I vehemently object to this. They tried to shut her down and say that her naming them and calling them out and pointing it out was violence. This isn't a peaceful discussion. This is a violent act of violence. Well, she handed them their butts and continued, believe me, she made her case. And one of the things she brought up was critical race theory. And the general idea that her children were being taught that America has a racist history. And in order to truly move forward and to overcome racism and to allow black and brown children to overcome the barriers of a systemically racist society, that children need to be taught to acknowledge that the U.S. is racist still. Mm-hmm. And that its society, laws, and institutions are inherently racist. And no matter what some do, they will always be disadvantaged. And she laid out, I just couldn't believe it. I was stunned because this is what we asked. We went to academia, we asked different people. I went around and I said, I want to pull the heart of critical race theory. Can you explain to me its goals? Forget about the little subtopics and everything else. If you could sum up critical race theory in 200 characters or less, how would you do it? So I could put it on a survey. We got the definition that was almost verbatim at the school board meeting and have been polling it since last Friday and ended Tuesday, or we ended the 7th really, and I closed out people's interviews on Tuesday morning. I said, you don't hand it in, it's done. All right, so this was just yesterday. So obviously we did this right. And I wanted to note that before we go to this next slide. All right. Which would you say comes closer to your view on education? And by the way, they wanted to shut this woman down. They didn't give a damn what she had to say until she went ballistic like, shut your mouth, you work for me. If you want your 600 per pupil every couple of months, you will shut your mouth and listen to what I have to say. It was excellent, honestly. Everybody, I mean, representative government is why it was excellent. It's supposed to be. And I think a lot of people forgot this. Which would you say comes closer to your view about education? Option A, which is what you would call the traditional American viewpoint. Children should be taught to be merit-based. By the way, great Zoom meeting suggestions. Children should be taught to be merit-based, racially colorblind, and capable of being whomever if they work hard. Not that they are disadvantaged based on the color of their skin. Option B. Children should be taught that the only way to overcome racism is to acknowledge U.S. society, laws, and institutions are inherently racist, and some are disadvantaged no matter what they do. That would be the academic goal of critical race theory. It went down in a blaze of glory. 46 points. 46 points. There are not many things that go down like this. This is so overwhelming. It's more than 2/3, and with 11.2% telling us that they're undecided, which way do you think it would? Who do you think would benefit from that more? Let's look at it by race. Most of these slides I put up by party, but I did this one by race. And some of the other ones you'll see by education, by region, all right? But this one's by race, and that, I think, is important. Whites, just under 71%, chose the traditional American viewpoint of education and personal responsibility. Only 18% of white, not Hispanics, chose the critical race definition. Well, of course, Rich. They're white and they're racist and they don't know they're racist and blah, 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 right? We're my critical race supporters. That's what they would say. Okay. Hispanics chose it 2/3. The traditional American viewpoint. About a quarter only chose critical race theory. What would you have to say to them? Are brown people part of our historically racist society and they don't understand they're racist?
I'm sorry.
I mean, really, this just falls on its face at every corner. And here we are, African Americans. 52% chose the traditional American view, a majority. They are the highest one to choose critical race theory, but it's just a little over a third. It's still negative in a big way, negative double digits. Negative 14.5 points. So critical race theory couldn't even pass a national referendum if only African Americans were voting. Do you understand what I'm telling you right now? If only African American voters were voting on a national referendum on critical race theory, it would fail. And it would fail by a pretty comfortable margin. We'd be able to call it within about 45 to 50 minutes. That's that kind of a margin. Even the AP would call it the same night. And Asians, 2/3, damn near mirroring Hispanic voters. The only difference with Asians, there's more undecided than there are who chose critical race. For Hispanics, still very few people agree with the idea that children should be taught that the only way to overcome racism is to acknowledge the history of racism in this country and that U.S. society, laws, and institutions are inherently racist, which is what that means, by the way. And some are disadvantaged, no matter what they do. Americans don't believe that. They simply don't believe that. As a pollster, I'm getting more and more.
Cynical.
It's not even a word of cynic. It's kind of angry. It's anger. I think it's really anger that I'm just trying to disguise as something else. Because I don't understand how badly the American people are misrepresented in this country. By the media, by their own elected leaders. It's anger. They have no idea what the country thinks, and when they even are told, they ignore it. They don't care. They're going to govern you how they're going to govern. And they're going to tell you what you should think. And if you're black and you're in that majority, there's something wrong with you. You ain't black, right?
Yeah.
According to our president, you don't understand what's good for you. You ain't really black. Again, if critical race theory was up for a national referendum in this country and only black people were voting, it would fail. And it would fail by a significant margin to where the turtle of an AP race caller would even be able to call it the same night. That should be astonishing to you. It's 11:30. I would love to honestly continue to talk about this forever, but we got to move on. Okay. I have done so much research, and if you have followed our work over the years, you know it. Other people have done so much research, and we have tried to highlight it. The media is a contagion in this country for mass shootings. Publix yesterday, where sadly a toddler died, 3 people died, 2 were victims, 1 was the perpetrator. All right? And they died in a Palm Beach Publix. The media wanted to make it out like, again, here we go. They hate Publix. They hate Publix because some family members donated to Donald Trump. And they hate Publix because they're a core of the community. They are. If you lived in Gainesville, if you lived in any college town, you know that state, those students cannot survive without Publix. Right, Laura? They cannot survive without that place. They wouldn't even make it through their bachelor degree, their master degree, whatever. They employ so many, and they're good to them. They employ many students. They employ many people who are waiting to collect Social Security, and they're in that transition in their lifetime. They employ people who are trying to have corporate advancement. They are a great employer, which is why they win that damn award every year. Almost every year. Have won it multiple times. But they hate Publix because Publix agrees with you. When it comes to general ideas of control, some of the family members donate to the wrong people. Anyway, so it had to become a mass shooting yesterday because the media is the contagion. We have mathematically shown that the media is the contagion, and worse. What I mean by that is they cause mass shootings. Their coverage actually causes mass shootings, and they don't give a damn because it helps their ideology. They want the Second Amendment gone or badly restricted, so they don't really care about how many toddlers die. It doesn't matter. A mass shooting is properly defined in social science as 4 or more victims. For you blue check Twitter morons. Yesterday was not a mass shooting. It was an unfortunate tragedy and a personal beef. It looks like. We don't know yet. I'm just saying. But either way, it doesn't even fit the definition. But they'll use it to restrict the Second Amendment. So we wanted a base because the conversation in the media is never whether you support the Second Amendment or not. It is always this faux choice, which most Americans don't even believe will help. So when you ask, do you think stricter gun laws would even work? They say no. Because most Americans will know, and in Florida, we've asked this for years, right? In Florida, the overwhelming desire is for more mental health, addressing mental health issues. Florida voters view this as we're a sick society. There's something wrong with us. And they're right, by the way. That's what should slow. The Second Amendment predates the modern phenomena of mass shooting, which dates back to the 60s, University of Texas. Texas, whatever. The incident, the tragedy. The Second Amendment was around for more than 2 centuries before there became mass shootings. And in fact, before the Pulse nightclub shooting, the greatest mass murder event was not even with the availability of firearms greater than today, was not even a firearm. It wasn't even gun violence. It was bomb material at a school that killed children. Horrifically. So most Americans, they'll get creative. We want to know a baseline here of who does and does not support the Second Amendment, and we want to know by party. And we got it by everybody. By education, by income, the locals community. You have the crosstabs already. You could scroll through them, and I strongly suggest you look at education. It will really give you an idea that there is a middle in this country. There's that elite, upper crust area of society that thinks that we've progressed beyond the need for guns.
Yeah, okay.
And then there's this uneducated, truly uneducated, that's why we do education detail, pre and below, who don't really understand the point or history behind the Second Amendment. And that's the coalition that makes up Oppose. And you're going to see it in a second by party. Because you already know that disproportionately those two groups lean to one party. But look at education. It's very interesting. And look at region. Okay? But we're going to look at it by party right now. And we simply ask, do you support or oppose the Second Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which states the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed? Or are you unsure or have no opinion? You will see the overwhelming majority of voters in this country supports the Second Amendment. Nearly 2/3 of the country, which is a little bit scary considering it's in the Bill of Rights, should probably be universal, but it's not. You will see very clearly that a majority of Democrats do not support the Second Amendment. 20 years ago, this would have been unfathomable. That's why when Obama said Bible clinging, gun toting, he knew he made a mistake. Because even a huge chunk of his coalition up and down Appalachia were Second Amendment supporters. That became the shift. That is where the shift started. That's why Joe Manchin refuses to touch the Second Amendment. Joe Manchin can do whatever he wants to do. The minute he touches the Second Amendment, he's done. Mm-hmm. He's done in West Virginia. He comes from a very popular family, well-respected, honestly. It's true. Viewed to be a moderate and a reasonable man. I have my own views on it, but that's not the point. The point is, that is how he is viewed. But he would not touch the Second Amendment because he's done. 47.5% of Democrats do, in fact, support the Second Amendment. That compares to almost near universal support among Republicans, with only 7% opposing, and almost 60% of independents who support it. There are very, very tiny minorities among Republicans and independents who oppose it. But there are about 1/3 of the Democratic Party who will outright admit that they oppose it, on top of 1/5 who refuses to answer. I don't know if that stuns any of you, but it did stun me. It did stun me. We're polling districts right now. We're polling districts and we're polling states. We're asking this question in districts and in states. And in a blue district that is supposed to be a D9 in the partisan voting index. The PVI is about D9. Although the incumbent wins there by a larger margin. Because Republicans are incompetent. Not because it's that large of a Democratic advantage, because it is not, based on the research we're doing. 68% so far And by the way, what is it? It's D plus 13 right now. So the raw is actually more than the PVI. It's D plus 13 or 15. And roughly around there. And even in this district, it got more support than nationally. So, take that for what you will. Take that for what you will. And I will say this too. Republicans, and I've been saying this, Republicans are just incompetent. They're completely incompetent. They have no idea how to target voters. They don't know why they keep losing these districts by a huge amount. They don't know how to reach these people who share their worldview, yet somehow continue to vote for Democrats. They're dumb. The Republican consulting class, the establishments, party chairs around the country, they're stupid. The consultant class is ineffective. I'm not insulting anybody. I'm stating a fact. If you have this much of the country on your side with all these issues, how could you possibly be this much of an electoral failure? Donald Trump's gone. You can't keep blaming them. We're going to go on more here. And as we go on more, it's going to become more and more evident that Republicans need a serious makeover. A serious makeover. There are people who share their worldview but don't even know they do. They're under the wrong impression about what parties belong where. And where is all of this critical race idea coming from? Where is all this anti-Second Amendment coming from? Most conservatives, of course, would blame public schools. I personally, and I don't think it's just conservatives, if you are a college graduate, you know what I'm talking about. But it starts very early these days, and if you're a parent, you know that. Throw back to the parent at the school board meeting yesterday. And schooling by household was a suggestion we got from the locals community, peoplespundit.locals.com, peoplespundit.locals.com. So you'd have a hand in this. This is what we do. But on the Zoom call last week, somebody suggested we add this. Hat tip Ron, right? It was Ron. Hat tip. And if I'm wrong, you can yell at me tonight during the Zoom meeting. All right. But this was a great idea to add. And I didn't even really look at this before. Laura and I did some work on the drop of attendance when it came to, whatever live, which were basically Zoom, Zoom call meetings for kids, Zoom call learning, which is garbage, distance learning, whatever they called it in your area. We did look at numbers of attendance that were dropping off in major metropolitan areas because the point was we were trying to identify how many children were slipping through the cracks during this COVID panic that was without any merit. Shutting down schools without any merit. It was horrible. It was horrible in some of these areas. So we asked again about whether or not people thought kids should go back to school, things should return back to normal kind of thing in the fall. It's even higher than it was last time, which was about, in the 60s. It's just about 70% now. All right, and I'd have to go look, but it actually may have gone a little bit over. All right, so in any event, somebody suggested we ask school by household. What mode of schooling, right? So are your children going to public schools, private schools, home schools? And again, the sample size for this is lower because we're looking at parents, okay? Sample size was about, I think it was like a little over 300 or so. Anyway, public school, private school, homeschool, both public schools and private schools, or considering homeschooling. And as we were doing research on this, we noticed that homeschool rates have jumped about 4%, so about 8 to 12. At least that's what some research suggests. And wouldn't you know it, that's exactly what we found. 12.5% of registered voters who are parents with school-aged children tell us that they are homeschooling their kids. I didn't have time to put this all up. But I got to tell you guys on the locals community, you have the crosstabs. Go and look by small business. First of all, by employment status. Then also by whether or not they're self-employed or a small business owner or not. And then by education level. Check out all of that. And I think we have party up right now, but check out employment status, check out the small business owner indicator, whether or not they are a small business owner or not, or they're self-employed, and you will see dramatic. If you are a small business owner, you are more than three times, I think. If I remember, hold on, wait, no, more than two times. More than two times likely to have your child be homeschooled. If you are in that middle group, if you're pre-high school or below, then you don't really have that luxury, so you don't do it. If you're a graduate student, or you're somebody who has a graduate degree, professional class, they don't do it. They're in the low single digits. Everybody else in between is disproportionately higher, whether you are a high school graduate or you have a GED, whether you have some college or you have an associate, whether you are a bachelor, you have a bachelor's degree, you're an undergrad, you are significantly more likely to send your child to homeschool. It's very incredible, actually. And if you are a person who could be considered a small business owner but working class, you are significantly more likely to send your child to homeschool. It's really cool. You could check out region too, by the way, and area type. Actually, look at area before you even look at region. Cross those. I mean, it's interesting stuff. So all in all, total, 72.3% told us their kids go to public school. 10% tell us they go to private school. More than that, 12.5%, more than go to private, say they're homeschooled now. This is right in line with what we looked at last week when we did research for this. It's incredible. And then both public and private, we don't know if we're in line here because they didn't ask. We couldn't find any data on whether or not parents have some children in private, some in public, but we wanted to ask that. And that's a little under 3%. And another 2.5% roughly are considering homeschooling. So by the time all said and done, there's a potential here for 15% of the American parenting public to be homeschooling their children. That's what COVID has done. I imagine it's a mix of COVID versus a fear that their children will be indoctrinated. Obviously, you see we have a much larger population of Republicans telling us that they're both public and private, and the general understanding there is, that these are working people who are trying to do both. Maybe they have one kid who has certain needs, whatever it may be. There's a slew of other reasons. Republicans and independents are just as likely to say their children are in public schools, but they are significantly less likely than Democrats to say their children are in public schools. No shocker there. Republicans and Democrats generally, even independents, we're talking about 2 points here, are generally all in the same boat with how much private schooling there is, although independents and third-party voters are slightly higher with private school than either partisans. And then Republicans are significantly higher, along with independents, than Democrats to say that they are homeschooling their children. Although, I was a little bit surprised at how many Democrats are homeschooling their children. It's below the national average, and Republicans, independents, and third-party voters are higher, homeschoolers. But I'm still kind of shocked at that. I really am. All right, and then both public and private. Here we have, again, Republicans and independents and third-party voters roughly around the same. Democrats way down on the list. And that comes from them basically being of the worldview, the public education system must survive. It's what we're all working towards, a collective community. All children, the children belong to the community. Like Don and I talked about last week. We got to get past this idea that it's your child. It's the community's child. Okay, so that helps people understand. Mm-hmm. All right, we really got to roll along here. We're 15 minutes to the top of the hour, and I want to leave a lot of time for questions. We're going to answer. We're generally going to have the audience, as long as we're in this content of this debate here, we're generally going to have the locals audience steer the direction of the conversation and the Q&A. Okay, steer the direction of the conversation before the Q&A. Excuse me. All right, and then so we'll leave a couple of minutes for questions about this, what we've been over, and then we'll get into a general Q&A. All right, Anyway, let's see. Let's just keep going through. Greatest
I do
threat
have
to the
some
U.S.
polling questions.
Greatest threat. Just keep them for now, okay? That was, I don't remember who to give credit to this, but I've always wanted to do this, and somebody mentioned it during the Zoom call. Who was it?
Which one?
Last week. Greatest threat to the U.S., biggest enemy. So please rank nation states only. Please rank, in order of greatest. Who would you, basically it says, which one of the following nations would you consider to be the single greatest enemy of the United States? And that is generally the Gallup question. We add something else, though. Meaning, which poses the greatest threat. All right? And that's what we really wanted to get to the heart at. And here we have China. Runs away with it. 20-point margin on the dot. A solid plurality. Hate that word. A solid plurality will cite China as the greatest threat. Love, again, these 100% stacks because they tell you everything you need to know about it. 22.2% cited Russia. 14.7% cited North Korea. 4.4% cited Iran. 3.4% actually said none. 1.9% chose another country. And then unsure was about 11%. While there does seem to be some pretty widespread agreement here looking at this graphic, we can see that there is a serious relationship between party identification and greatest threat between China versus Russia. If you are a Democrat, you are more likely to choose Russia than any other category, any other nation. That is not true of any other voter in this country. Any other voter in this country is overwhelmingly more likely to choose China. Okay? Only 8.7% of Republicans chose Russia. Only a fifth of independents and third-party voters chose Russia. While 4 in 10 third-party and independents chose China, a huge majority, almost 64% of Republicans chose China, and only a quarter of Democrats chose China. Although that still was the second biggest category still was the second biggest group for Democrats. There is some pretty, almost in-line agreement. North Korea, Democrats view it 18%. They're slightly above the national average, while Republicans and independents are basically mirror images of each other when it comes to their view of, how many of them view North Korea as the top threat. Iran, there is almost no difference between Republicans and Democrats on Iran, which is interesting because this is a subgroup that would oppose the Iran nuclear deal. This is a subgroup that would oppose Joe Biden undoing what Donald Trump did. And it goes across the board. Democrats, Republicans, and independents, they're these mid-single digit coalition. Okay? All right, so, and then none. 4% almost of Democrats said none. There's no great threat to us. That compares to 1.3, I believe it's so small. Yeah, 1.3% of Republicans and even independents, 6% said none. No, there is no great threat. Other was about 2% nationwide, and Democrats largely mirrored that. Republicans were about half of that, and independents were about 33% more than that. All right? So that's pretty interesting stuff right there. It's 11:49, which brings us into the general foreign policy category here, folks. All right? We had a lot of conversation on the show when there was the Israeli crisis. We thought it was obvious that we needed to ask this. Gallup has asked this for years. I said last Monday on What Are the Odds with Barnes, I kind of alluded that we were going to generally find something much closer to what YouGov found than what Gallup has been finding, which is Gallup will find a very small percentage of people who say unsure, no opinion, and I do believe they asked neither as well. YouGov said both. One of the options being both. Regarding the conflict in the Middle East, are your sympathies more with the Israelis or more with the Palestinians? I can't understand why YouGov would say both, Because you can't be both. It's not possible. You can be neither. You can be pro-Israel, pro-Palestinian, neither, or unsure. You cannot be pro-both because they are diametrically opposed. One doesn't want the other one to exist. You cannot be both. All right? That's ridiculous. But in any event, that's what they asked, and we generally found something similar. And I think when they wrote both, what they got was a reflection of the answer, of the true answer that we found. And I'm going to tell you what I mean right now. So, more than 2-1 margin, Americans back Israel over Palestine. Okay, we can see that. Driven by party, again, which is why I brought this up. As you can see, there is a very, very small percentage of Democrats who back Israel. So when they still say that they are generally in line, their voters are not. And I have been saying this for a while, that the AOC, the Bernies, look, Elliot Engel, was Nancy Pelosi's top lieutenant, pro-Israel. He was destroyed by an AOC wing of the party in the primary, and he was easily reelected in New York in November. The Democratic Party is becoming the party of Palestinians. It is right here in front of you. It's shifting. It's not quite totally there yet. But you have representatives like Rashida Tlaib openly inviting members or people who have known associations with the terrorist organization Hamas in the halls of Congress to powwow in her office. To get Ilhan Omar out of trouble for making anti-Semitic comments. That has been the news. That has been the behavior. So it shouldn't shock you to see that Democrats are moving away from Israel. There's a large percentage who say neither, and a large percentage who say unsure. But I'll tell you what, 10 years ago, the parties would have been almost uniform with this. In agreement. They'd have been much closer. Go back and look at Gallup tracking and you'll see what I'm talking about. Still, nevertheless, we found a pretty big number, almost 24%, who told us they were unsure or had no opinion. It was a little bit surprising to me because typically people are willing to give you your opinion on this issue. Their opinions. I think maybe because of what was going on and the media coverage being so anti-Israel, maybe they clouded people's minds a little bit and it got jumbled up. And this is why YouGov and us found, these findings. But in any event, even more tell us neither, which is, I think, what YouGov was trying to get at. When they said both, I think the true reflection is the neither category. And you can see there's a big, I'm not going to use the word isolationist. There's a big chunk of the voters out here who really have other things on their mind. They don't care. But in any event, only 13.4% in this country backs the Palestinians. Mm-hmm. You would never know that from the media coverage over this latest conflict. If you watch Twitter, you would think that everyone in America supported Palestinians. That is not the case. Only 5% of Republicans, only 13% of independents, and Democrats are more likely at 21%. Republicans are much more likely than everybody else to back Israel. And that is most definitely, by the way, locals community, go check out By Religion right now. And then check out the follow-up, Evangelical, whether they are yes or no. Go look at that and you will see what Robert and I were trying to tell you. This has nothing to do with some and his name was Wormwood. This has to do with shared values. I mean, it's such a silly, ignorant depiction of what's going on there. This is about shared values and equal treatment of religions. To evangelicals and other Protestants especially, it is about who is a better steward of the Holy Land. That's what it is. Who protects the rights of all religions to visit the Holy Land and who does not. It isn't about some doomsday prophecy. Someone with no religion actually commented, why would Christians support Israel? I have no idea. They killed their God. I'm like, holy God. Anyway, moving on. I just think we all need to start listening a little bit more. You know what I mean? We really need to start listening a little bit more. And now, for what was really before the break, what was stunning to me, because after the break we'll get into America First, we'll get into elected lead. Actually, maybe I could squeeze that all in, and then we can hit the questions, then take the break, do some questions, and then bring on Don. All right, that's what we'll do. All right, so this is what I was a little bit surprised about. For all these years, I actually thought that there was a pretty solid majority in this country who support statehood for Palestine. That is not the case at all. Here's Palestinian statehood by party. Hell, even 13% of Democrats oppose it, 37.4% of Republicans, and nearly 1/4 of independents. Independents are identical between support and oppose. There is actually a slight opposition among independents. I mean, it's not statistically significant, but that's incredible. I did not expect this to be that close. Only 17.3% of Republicans support it. 36.8%. They couldn't even get a majority support among Democrats, frankly. I think that's worth noting. That's why I say, while it's not yet the anti-Israel party, if it continues down the Bernie route, it will be. But I think what happened here is that there's just a huge chunk of Americans, almost 50% of each party, each identification, they just don't care. You know, they just don't care. It's not their. What do you make of that, real quick? I mean, it's just not their issue. It's
not their hill.
You know what? This brings us up to the America First test, and this is by region, because when I told you the Northeast was the pro Biden, that is what is bringing. That is the only reason Joe Biden's approval rating is slightly over 50 in this poll. They are the only reason. If he stinks a little in the middle, in the Northeast, he's done. And it would be hard for him to do so, and here is why. Regarding public policy, which would you say generally comes closer to your view? And we give what is generally considered the globalist worldview, the Jonah Goldberg worldview, the Bill Kristol worldview. That's the second choice. The first choice is what Donald Trump had been arguing for years. All right? Policy should put the needs of U.S. citizens. And when we said this, by the way, Zoom knows this, we said economic, immigration, and foreign policy. When it comes to public policy, including economic, immigration, and foreign policy, should it put the needs of which one comes closer to your view? And that is, policy should put the needs of U.S. citizens ahead of U.S. allies and the global community. Overwhelming. 86.3%, even among Democrats. By the way, there is, all right, policy should put the needs of U.S. allies in the global community ahead of U.S. citizens was only 14%. And that's what you're asking Americans to do when you're talking about the Paris Accord, when you're talking about the Iran deal, when you're talking about immigration policy. Don't pretend like this question is skewed or something, because it's not. That is what you're asking Americans to do. You're asking them to put the needs of allies and other interests around the world ahead of the needs of U.S. citizens. The decision with Anwar yesterday, what are you doing? You are putting the needs of other countries and other interests ahead of the needs of U.S. citizens. The Northeast was the lowest percentage, and it was a significant difference. In the West, which is why, I mean, some of the districts in California right now, Laura, are higher than the national average right now. Mm-hmm. And look at the West. It's 91%. 91. In the South, that's higher than the South, which is 87. The Midwest, 84, which is why you can see why Donald Trump's message was so resonant there. And Mitt Romney's was not, and John McCain's was not, and George W. Bush's was not.
You know what surprised me?
I mean, this is, hello, McFly, I want to flick their ears. I want to flick the back of their ears. McFly, is anybody home in there, McFly? This is so overwhelming. It's not even funny. So the Republican Party is talking. Just give me a second. I'll put it back up. The Republican Party is talking to a coastal Northeastern elite, or at least the establishment of the Republican Party is talking to a Northeastern elite. They're not even talking to the base of their own voters, and they're damn sure not talking to the rest of the country. Donald Trump did, and they spent 4 years, more than 4 years, vehemently attacking him and attempting to ban him from ever holding public office again. Super smart. Adam Kinzinger has 13% of the American public on his side. 13.7, excuse me. Let me put it up. Liz Cheney has 13.7% of the American public on her side. Which direction do you think is wisest to move?
I was just surprised that the Northeast was so high at 82.2%.
That's still, I mean, it's still roughly high, but it is like, comparably lower,
compared to the others, but I was still surprised
that it was that high, because we live there, and you know that.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
I mean, they'll throw the country out if it makes them look good. You know what I'm saying? Like, if it makes them feel like better global citizens, they'll they'll sell you out the river. Look, I can say whatever I want about my own homeland. You don't give me this crap. I'm allowed to say whatever I want. I left for a reason.
Like no other.
All right, so that is America First by region, but definitely check out what is stunning about this, folks. Age, race, education, income, gender, whatever. It doesn't matter. There are little areas where you can see pockets of elitists. If when we nest the variables, you'll see them. White urbans that have a graduate degree or more, who make, $250 or more, they're willing to sell the country down the tube. Whatever. Because their needs are met. Abraham Maslow, the hierarchy of needs. They can afford that luxury because not only are their basic needs met, but they're trying to reach now the point of self-actualization. And in their minds, that means virtuous. So I have to virtue signal myself to the top of the pyramid. All right?
Even though when you're at the top of the pyramid, what you're supposed to do is reach your hand down.
And grab and help people up, right. But that's, Maslow would say that's, of course, foolish to think that's going to happen. That's why they're afforded the luxury of having these ridiculous worldviews that hurt everybody else. It's basic hierarchy of needs. Maslow is right on the money. He's dead, but was right on the money. All right, so elected leaders. Let's get this out of the way before the break.
First question. Can you comment, for example, for America First, vets and military have completely flipped outlooks?
Yeah, I think that if we would have I wish we kind of would have broken them down for you, and we'll do that. All right, because it's a little bit misleading, and I think that's a great question. Let's break it down and talk about it again, and I'll see if I can do that during the break. Actually, okay? I don't know if I can. I can't promise that, but it's different. The military has a different view than vets, and I think what's going on there is that we might have reached some brass sitting at their computer doing nothing. You know what I mean?
Still holding the line.
Still holding. They want, look, military brass want to fight endless wars. There's many reasons why, but the top reasons are, one, they get promoted faster. It's true. They get promoted faster, glory, and because they provide a service to contractors who are later going to make them a ton of money when they leave the military. So none of which has to do with the interest of the American public. It has to do with their interest and their interest alone. They want to go in the history books. They want a plaque on West Point. They want a bunch of rich friends. They want to build a 35-room mansion in Bel Air, Maryland with movie theater rooms. I know because I know these people. They want war. They like war. So if you look at, and we're gonna, make sure Is that person a locals person? I'm going to put that up on locals later, guys. That was great. And maybe we could talk about if you're on the Zoom call later. That would be great. And because I can share my screen with you. We'll nest the variables and I'll show you what I mean. All right. And vets, like if you totally different than when you reach vets in Texas and Florida. All right. And they're like, nah, I'm not really a big believer in what we were doing anymore. But let me get this one in real quick. Of course, it was all about leaders. Speaking of the brass, all about leadership. And, Kelly was going to lead an army to remove Donald Trump from the White House. He's such an immoral guy. As it turns out, the vast majority of Americans would prefer a leader who does what he says he will do. And they don't really give a damn about morality. Here we go. As long as he is not spineless, or she, and they don't lie to them. Yep. This is interesting to me because Biden made the decency argument. He was targeting a certain group of people. I'm more and more every day becoming convinced that Joe Biden, I am. I'm not more and more by the day. I'm just more and more bold about saying Joe Biden absolutely needed to change the rules of the game and to disrupt the integrity of the process. Otherwise, he would have gotten destroyed. In any normal election season or cycle, it wouldn't even have been close, folks. I'm talking about a landslide of epic proportions. Morality. Let me read the question. Regarding political figures and elected leaders, which would you prefer? Morality was, I prefer a leader with perceived moral character who shares my views, even if they rarely keep their promises. That garnered exactly 26.2%. Policy, I prefer a leader who always keeps their promises and shares my views, even if they have perceived moral flaws. 57.6%. That almost even earned the majority support of Democrats. 7 in 10 Republicans, 6 in 10 independents. Unsure was about 16.2%. I haven't gotten a chance to, but I can't wait to get into the social desirability indicators and cross those tabs, baby. Because I bet you that's going to be a wealth of information. I really do. And we'll talk more about this, of course, when we come back. And we'll bring Don on. I'm going to start the Q&A as soon as I come back.
Better.
All right? As soon as I come back, and then after, just try to keep it to what we've been doing thus far, because I can't I can't grab something else from the survey and do it. But if you want to talk about Biden's approval, generally what happened, I can give you an idea. That'll be up. I think Kamala's up too. Isn't she up already? You see Kamala's still positive, but she's shrinking bad. She's going off. Next one, she's done. The honeymoon's over. It'll be -5 to 10. I'm just telling you right now. I would make a bet on it. All right?
I'm sure
and I'm not a betting man.
The honeymoon being over.
The honeymoon is over. All right? So with that in mind, look, it's 12:08. Let me just give you the spiel. Follow me on Twitter at peoples_pundit. Don't forget to join the locals community if you want to have a say in these surveys. peoplespundit.locals.com. peoplespundit.locals.com. If you like the videos, hit the like button, give it a thumbs up. If you don't, hit the down button. Whatever. It's supposed to be a free country. And according to 60+%, or almost 60%, that not being able to do that is a grave threat to your free speech rights. All right. And then, of course, like the page People's Pundit Daily on Facebook. Subscribe to it on YouTube. Hit the notification bell on YouTube, and that'll let you know when we're going to go live. Way over the time here. Let's take about a 1 minute, 45 second break, and then we will get into Q&A and talk to Don Smith.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. There's rhythm in our love. It's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to disappear for a night, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a...
Yeah, that's Bad Habit by the Bone Band. Always a great thank you to the Bone Band for that theme song, which is just simply fantastic and perfect for the show. All right, what's that? Yeah, because that's me. I'm taboo. I'm somewhat, what's the word? Somewhat bad. Right? All right, wearing my shirt today from Jim at Susquehanna. Thank you so much, Jim. We love the shirt over here. I'm a pollster. Accuracy matters. What say you? What say you? What say you, Nate? What say you?
There you go.
All right, there we go. All right, so with that in mind, let's get to the Q&A. All right, lots to talk about. Let's get to the Q&A, and then we'll bring Don in a little bit.
All right, cool beans. So
Couple minutes.
Dark Vader would like to know, do you think some of these issues can be used in a Republican candidate and garner more cross support than a traditional Republican candidate?
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, that's the bottom line. Our polling for the last, years, but really, I mean, the public polling project started just before the election, right, in the fall, and it's continued since then. I think the overall lesson here is that the old Republican Party has no constituency. They don't have a majority constituency. Democrats are winning by default. They're winning by default. And Republicans have a choice they have to make. They have to become a party with a new identity. They have to. They spent 4 years fighting the man who had the right message because they didn't like the man. You know, and as it turns out, by the way, Americans didn't really care about his perceived moral flaws. There was massive social pressure on it. They didn't really care. Had Republicans shut up long enough for Donald Trump to convey his message, he probably would have added even more to their coalition. But they couldn't. What I'm telling you is our polling is showing that there are voters who vote Democrat because they don't know the boundaries. They don't know the terms here. There's too much with the handicap, the disunity with the Republican Party, the ineffective messaging, the old wing branding. They're becoming a hindrance to the Republican Party becoming a majority party. We are doing a slew of other polling, folks. I got to tell you, it's so much more than the results we're going over now. There are districts that are what most people would consider, if not likely, maybe somewhat lean, but likely Democratic districts where people tell us when we ask them about their views, their world views, they're not in line with the Democratic Party. So their only explanation is that this is a failure of messaging on behalf of the Republican Party. There's just this is a failure of branding, of identity, of whatever you want to call it. And those traditional candidates, they got to go if Republicans want to be a majority party. The leadership, which I didn't bring up, Kevin McCarthy's unfavorable rating, If you saw me on Bannon yesterday, he clipped it and put it perfectly. That clip he ran on Rumble of what I was saying that's it. A minute and a half of it, that's it. They can't stand him. They can't stand Mitch McConnell. These people are hindrances. But they have the outsized voices in the media. Mm-hmm. And that's got to stop. Let's get rid of another one, though. Great question.
All right,
cool. I mean, that's the crux of what our poll, that's the lesson the polling has been trying to teach.
Real quick, Jimmy from Locals would love to see a question about the Lafayette Square hoax. The one with Antifa.
Oh. I wonder if how many people know about it yet. You know what I mean? Yeah, go ahead.
But I just wanted to throw that out there. Vince Locker, I can't recall if Rich said this, but with the district and state polling, is Rich asking folks whether they would, it's hidden, be more or less likely to support a candidate who opposes CRT in schools, and how important of an issue it is to them?
We are. Yeah, it's important, especially among parents. It's very important, and it's not close, guys. It is not close. Not at all. Even in, again, what people would normally consider a blue district or blue precincts. Mm-hmm. They're not close. The problem is they don't really understand. They don't know. If you vote for candidate A, they're going to support this. If you vote for candidate B, they are going to support this. This is what this means for your child. This is what this means for your family. Mm-hmm. Republicans are stupid. They don't know how to talk to regular people. And I don't know if he appreciates me bringing this up or not. California is a great example. The map is going to change. They're over there with their dinosaur way of thinking, trying to defend an ever-shrinking number of districts in and around Orange County, right? And that is not the way forward. When you're on defense, you're losing in politics. And they are on defense when there are opportunities outside of it. And what are they going to do? I'm just doing it. What are they going to do like in California 16? Which will be a redrawn district that probably takes away from David Valadao, however you say his name, all right, who voted for impeachment, who voted for the hearing. Mm-hmm. This is an idiot. All right, he's toast. Mm-hmm. He's toast. And there's going to be at least 3 to 5 points taken out of that district if they go the way most people think it's going to go, and it's going to go in Acosta's district in 16. Instead of rallying around the candidate who has already started to target potential new voters and potential influence voters, persuadable voters, who is raising money, has an education background, is a normal person from the district. They're going to look outside the district to a moron who can raise $2 million and will run TV ads and get crushed by 20 points like the last fool did. The last candidate that they jumped in and pushed to the front actually lost support from the jungle primary to the final. I kid you not. They actually earned less of the vote. So not only did they not convince anybody with the old way of doing things, they lost people. This is how stupid they are. And what are they doing now? It's the good old boy club. They're going to swoop in and they're going to tell these candidates, I think you should just step aside, or they're going to try to railroad. And by the way, I'm not talking about candidates who are having a problem raising money. They're raising money to be competitive. It doesn't matter in these districts. It doesn't matter how much you raise, because you're not doing what is necessary to begin to build relationships with voters, to begin to explain to voters who you are again and what you stand for. And I think 2020 is a perfect example. That candidate had plenty of money. She got crushed because she was typical Republican.
Yep.
All right, moving on.
Rant done.
They got to get out of the way.
I know. It's all right. We'll make sure that happens, of course. Where is it? Sorry.
Who are you going to talk to? Who are you going to talk to? I don't know. Who's your target? Who's your target demographics? What are your top 3 target demographics? Where are the neighborhoods? What zip codes? What media? What media mark? Like, they have no idea. These are really stupid people.
They are special. Special is the word to use, Richie. You got to be.
No,
PR.
because you know what? Stupid is that you
What
really
stupid
don't
does?
have the ability to change or learn. Ignorant is when you just don't know. And if you were told something, then you wouldn't be unknowledgeable, you know, and you would be able to grow and learn. This is stupid. This is stupid. You know, it's a definition of stupid. The same mistake over and over again. They're incapable of growth.
Mm-hmm. Jim would like to know, what is Kamala at in this poll, and does the America First result from the Northeast bode well for Republicans in states like New Hampshire, Connecticut, Maine?
Yeah, this is why we started to put up Maine yesterday. Because for the locals community, peoplespundit.locals.com, you get the voter analysis machine models, all right? And we even gave by congressional district in Maine, and with a little bit of a text summary of what I thought. The bottom line is it does and should, and this is why it's so important for Republicans to go in the right direction. You need new electoral targets. You can't afford to lose a single district in Maine. You know, the second congressional district, Republicans don't win that district. Donald Trump won that district. Look at how close it is, actually. How did Trump win it by 8 points? He either overwhelmingly carried independents or he peeled away the Democratic base. 15, 14%. That's when you really start getting into crossover numbers that are big. When you win by numbers like that in a dead even area. When you're 35, 30, roughly, let me just say, DR split, 35, 30I, then you must overwhelmingly win independents to get to, the W plus 8. Or you won independence by a significant margin, but you peeled away 15, low teens, mid-teens of the other person's base. There is no other way to do it. And you might notice that the first congressional district still soured on Susan Collins. She benefited from Donald Trump being on the ballot. Higher turnout. And her margin was good in the second. It was even better, honestly. But that only translated to net vote gain because of Donald Trump being on the damn ballot. Susan Collins would have been in deep trouble if Donald Trump did not drive turnout in the second congressional district that high. Because the first still soured on her anyway, didn't it? It does. And Susan Collins, by the way, she's in the 23.1% category. She is not in the 14%, 13.7, excuse me. She is not in the majority category. All right, let's get one more and then I'm going to bring on Dawn.
All right. Laura, what do you think of the Virginia primary results from, they mean Rich, they just asked me, from Tuesday? McAuliffe won the Democratic primary, taking out multiple minorities, but the turnout numbers were weak in my opinion. Less than 500,000 IIRC, but there was a local report. See, sometimes the thing covers it. Sorry. Talking how impressive the numbers were because they were greater than the Republican convention process for last month. Apples and oranges. Any chance in Virginia for a flip?
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. It's possible. Virginia's a heavy lift, but it is it is possible. We showed you with the voter file analysis in Virginia last month that there are a ton of voters. The Virginia Republican Party has been in disarray for a very long time. They are terrible on registering people in that state now. They were relying on it being the old Dominion for decades and didn't realize that it was turning into the new Dominion. It is possible. It will be a tough go for Republicans. I think they got a pretty decent candidate, frankly. But standing for America first, but kind of like trying to weave that line with Donald Trump. The bottom line is you wouldn't expect the primary to be, that all that much. It wasn't. And Republicans, they do things differently than Democrats in Virginia anyway. So it really doesn't shock me that Virginia's primary was a lot more. But in the end, it won't matter. There are so many, if you saw the analysis, there are so many independents. You're going to have to, A, register new Republicans, and B, make movement with those independents. Huge block of voters. Mm-hmm. All right, they don't register by party, so we have to infer them in Virginia. But overall, The numbers in Virginia shocked me because the Biden supposed big win. Then why the hell this is machine learning modeling, folks. It's going through 400 plus data attributes per record and looking for contribution records, looking for any sign that somebody leans one way or the other. And it's very accurate. We would have expected Virginia to go from D plus 4 or 5 to D8, but it did not. Which does nothing but question, again, call into question a slew of results. But we'll get into that. All right. Let's what time is it? It's 12. Yeah, Don's here. It's 12:25. Give me one more. Don, one more. I'm going to bring you on.
Okay. Show's looking great. Looks better every week. Could you ask Rich if he thinks QE accelerates the rise of American fascism by making the incentive structure of big business more like the incentive structure of big government?
Yup. I know. It's a great question.
Right?
QE, talking about quantitative easing. Absolutely. I sure do. And I think you're going to see more and more of a war against anything not currency controlled by them. So cash, crypto, and even currency cash, you would think, no, they hate cash. They like currency they can account for. There's been wars on cash all over the place, and it's coming to America. They cannot it has been here. And what's scary about this new breed of fascism that we have been discussing now for months is that typical fascism relied on coercion to make big business do what it wanted. I mean, power. This time, it's a hive breed of fascism, a hive mind. And you can see those people in the polling. They're against the public on everything, and they're in the minority. But they all agree. And they happen to be disproportionately in charge of the halls of power. That's why we're headed, I think, for obviously a clash. I mean, a clash of what? I don't know yet. But there's no way there's not. You cannot continue like this. Good question. Let me bring on Don. All right, and give me 1 second, okay, everybody.
Yeah. So while you do that, I'll tell you a joke. So somebody said.
Yeah. Oh, I love jokes.
Yeah, so somebody said, Jay said, if you're homeschooled and you graduate, does that make you valedictorian? That's what made me laugh out loud before.
That's kind of.
I was just like, dang it.
That's funny. That's funny. What do you think about that, Don? If you're homeschooled?
Depends on how many kids you have, right?
Right. How you doing, my friend?
Are they twins,
Right. How you doing, my friend? Thanks for joining us as always. You've been listening to the poll results. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, really interesting. I mean, it just further goes into the whole thing about how everything that's being done legislatively is against the will of the people.
Constantly.
I mean, the terminologies that they're using doesn't fit in either. And it just shows how out of touch left-wingers are right now.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's just that the problem, too, is how badly Republican representation is on this, Don. I mean, they're not representing their public, so it's kind of hard for them to make a case to do anything, to bring in new people. And I guess what I'm saying is they have to make a decision here. The base is going to have to do some serious house cleaning in 2022. They have to, Don. I mean, there's no way around it. They have to,
what they need to do, Rich, is they need to...
I got Barnes's thing on you. My bad here. There we go. Hold on 1 second.
No, hang on.
It was there.
No, I got them both in here. I haven't done it.
It was there, but you picked the wrong one.
Go ahead, though, while I fix your thing, my friend.
Oh, I thought I was filling in for Robert. All right. No, what they need to do is they need to watch your show. They need to get the numbers. And then they need to watch my show and figure out how to communicate this. This is not complicated. It is so incredibly frustrating as a communications guy to sit and watch how the Republicans just fail to capitalize on issue after issue after issue. It means every day there's another thing. And if they just learned how to communicate this stuff, they'd win. It wouldn't even be close. They could even win in California. So, I mean, it's amazing that they don't grasp this stuff, that they don't understand that they're actually on the right side. Just because the media tells people that, it's this and it's that, it's not. And your numbers prove that. Talk to the American people and see how they really feel about these things, and then figure out how to message it. dummies.
You know, Don, I know. I mean, really, it gets you angry. It's like, I don't mean to call them names like that, or you just call it dummies. But they are. What is the other explanation? Please provide me one. You're not really out. You weren't vastly outspent last time. You were outspent, but you weren't vastly outspent. You didn't use the money wisely. And speaking of California, they can and win in these areas. We have been asking because the point is to see where the lines really are. And forget about partisan affiliation. We're testing party loyalty everywhere. They are overwhelmingly in these blue target districts. They are overwhelmingly telling us that Republicans don't put forward a viable candidate and they don't know where they stand. So when I tell you somebody won in a district last election by 20 points because 44% tell us they would vote for anybody else. It's just Republicans don't play here and we don't even know what the hell they stand for. Right, Laura? Just went over it with somebody yesterday. It is a tragedy. It's a failure to the voters in the district because they don't feel like, and it's not just that district. There's multiple, 3 out there right now. They don't feel like anyone else is talking to them. And they're in the culture. No one's trying to establish relationships with them. And then when Republicans, this is what really pisses me off. And then when Republicans do get someone who understands it, and they try to get in there and mix it up, then the good old boy club swoops in, picks somebody else, pushes them out, or puts them so far ahead in the money race and puts the handicap in play for them. They blow it.
Right. They do. Yeah. I mean, okay. So this, and you did some polling for us in that campaign. I worked for a candidate who was in the primary. We won by 30 points and getting ready to go up against Rashida Tlaib. The Michigan State Republican Party swoops in. They take over the campaign and they did abysmally. Yep. They did. Think of this. You're running a campaign against Rashida Tlaib. It's pretty easy, should be, to message that and to get your voice out there and get the right message out there. She's an easy target. It's like running against AOC or Omar or any of the squad. It's pretty easy to message that stuff. Everything she stood for in the polling that you did for us in that campaign, everything she stood for was not supported by anybody. Left, right, independent, doesn't matter. So it shouldn't be difficult. But you get, just like you say, people come in, they swoop in, and they kick everybody else out of the room. Maybe they need to start kicking these guys out of the room and saying, I think we're good. We're going to move forward. So, we all knew this was going to happen. Once we won the primary, like 2 days before, the state party, sat down with the 2 potential winning candidates in the primary, and they came right out and said, we're going to take this over. They did nothing.
Everybody got rich. Everybody got rich.
Sure did.
They got rich.
Yep.
And clobbered.
Raised a lot of money. Think about this for a minute. You had President Trump coming into that district four different times. And not a single time did they connect President Trump with this candidate running against Rashida Tlaib. You don't think President Trump would have jumped all over that campaign? Sure, he would have, but they just didn't do their job, and those are the cases. That's why we lose. It would have been
also bad blood there, Don. And for people who don't know the backstory, Don and I were talking, and there was bad blood between the old congresswoman in the district and Rashida Tlaib, and a simple attempt to reach out to her because she was railroaded. She represented the black community for years. She represented them still. And the voters, when we were polling their primary, because we polled their primary publicly too, just to see, she lost by default because Nancy Pelosi abandoned her. And it wasn't even competitive this time, that time, I mean. And there was bad blood there. A simple phone call that says, listen, you feel like your community isn't being represented. I'm not a typical Republican. I will listen to the needs of your community. Give me a chance. Give me your endorsement. Give me a chance. Walk around the neighborhood with me. Introduce me to the players. Introduce me to the people. You want me to listen to their voices. Give me a shot. And if I let you down, you can kick me out in 2 years. But we don't have to fold because of the letter after our name. We don't just have to fold up the tent and go home.
Yep.
Not a single called on. Yep. Not a single. I mean, politics is about people. Mm-hmm. It's about people, not really party. It's not about party. It's about people. You can talk over party if you do it right. But everybody came in. They all called their own favorite media people, their own favorite communications people, their own favorite polling people, and they just all got rich, and he got killed. He didn't even make inroads. Donald Trump made inroads in that district, by the way. He got more votes in that district, and he didn't even play for it. How could it have been that they failed that bad?
And we had it all set up, too. I mean,
it was set up, just so everybody knows, right? It was. You had it set up. You did.
We won by 30 points in the primary. We reached out to people. So we had your numbers to go by as far as even on the left, how they felt about Rashida Tlaib. We had actual intel from on the ground. I mean, we would go out to every day for lunch and we would just go around through the community. We would go knock doors. I never found a single person, I'm talking Democrat, that actually liked Rashida Tlaib. They did not like her at all. They thought she was nasty. They thought people shouldn't talk like she does. And they felt like she didn't really represent them. So this was the inability to make inroads on that. The inroads were already made. I would say they actually destroyed all the work that we did during the primaries. So it is what it is. And as long as things continue that way, we're going to have the same results. I mean, it's a definition of insanity. If you're going to keep doing things that way, you're not going to win these things. This was a solid candidate, good messaging. We had them set up for the general election, and they destroyed it. I was going to say they dropped the ball, but they didn't even drop it. They destroyed the ball. So that's the kind of stuff that we've got to fight back. It's all about messaging, because messaging is connecting with the people. How did the people in that district feel about this or that? If you can connect your message and they go, okay, now I get it, you're in good shape. That's what you need to do. So yeah, for me, I just get incredibly frustrated by the lack of ability to do this. Look at the issues you're talking about right now with your polling numbers. Critical race theory.
Yeah, let's bring that up, Don. Let me bring that up. Go ahead. Yeah,
that's pretty easy to message against that. I mean, that's a no-brainer. People do not support it. The transport thing that you and I went over last week on when you filled in for Dave, that's pretty easy to message. I mean, these things are not complicated. The transport thing, just for an example, we're talking about protecting the young girls who maybe don't want to compete against boys and get beat up on a wrestling mat and all these other things. That's pretty easy to do. School choice. School choice is incredibly easy to message. Do you want your kids to have a choice? Even to message it to. Think about this. To message this to the left, to the Democrats, who are what? What do they call themselves? The pro-choice party. So how can you be against choice for school? How does this hurt you? Why protect the teachers union? So many different ways that you can do these things. And that's why on my show, we're going to start this week. We're going to start going behind the scenes of campaigns, because this is such a critical part of it. What you do is very critical. You got to know how people feel about things. And then by taking that data, you can learn how to message it, how to say it correctly to where people understand it's simple, it's to the point, and everybody goes, yeah, I agree with that. So we're going to start going. I'm in 2 campaigns right now, and we're just at the very beginning of building it from the ground up. So it's a great time to start talking about this and giving people an idea of how this works. How do you build a campaign and how do you message? Because part of the messaging is having the right people in there, the people with the courage to say what needs to be said, and the people who will take the data that you provide and say, okay, this is where we need to go with it. Everybody agrees and you move forward. So we'll be doing a little segment each week on the show behind the scenes of the campaign. And it's really interesting because this is before any of these candidates have even announced anything. So it's kind of
like
cool.
The circus, prequel, right? Because it's what happens when you want it right, when you're trying to put it all together. And I was trying to get that image up. They saw it before. And again, locals, you got it on there. I mean, critical race is overwhelming. So 26 point. Oh no, whoops. Went the wrong way. There we go. So 67.4% chose the traditional American worldview, which is that, America's not perfect, but everyone should be taught that you can be whatever you want to be. If you work hard, it's merit-based, and that you are not disadvantaged based on the color of your skin. Critical race holds that children should be taught that the only way to overcome racism is to acknowledge our racist history, right? And that U.S. institutions, societies, laws, they're inherently racist. and that some are going to be disadvantaged no matter what they do. And that's their definition, Don. That's their goal. And only 21.4% chose that. So, I mean, it's, again, when you go down by 46 points, and I put this up by, can people hear Don when I do this? Go ahead, talk to me, Don. Let me see if I can hear you and your audio doesn't cut out. I think I did it right this time. You can hear Don, right, with that up? That graph still up? There we go. I mean, just tell me if anybody says they can't hear him. But I think the last time I did that, Don, it's because I did the order in which the inputs go. But anyway, this is interesting. I did this by race, even though a lot of the others are by party and by region. No. Because basically, and I'll take it down in a second, 46 points nationwide, even if black voters alone voted in a national referendum, it would go down in flames.
Yeah, that's an easy messaging one right there, everyone. Really, really easy.
Not that hard. Yeah,
it is not. But I don't. For some reason, they either don't get it, or they don't try, or they're afraid of being labeled. Listen to anybody who's thinking about running for anything. Let me tell you something right now. You will be labeled. No matter what you say, you will be labeled. It's
going to happen, folks.
You just press forward. That's what you do. You press forward with your message, and people will get the message. It doesn't matter what the labelers say. It's what the voters say. That's what elections are all about.
That's a great way to put it. Oh, well, let me see if I can grab some questions now that Laura, I'm sure you had a list, but you had to step out for a second. Rich Paul McCarthy's unfavorable. Who is favorable that could carry that message? You know, we haven't asked about other people before. Like Don said, when you get effective or you raise in stature, they're going to try to label you anyway. The first step, at least, Don, is to speak to at least your base. If I was looking at the Republican Party and who they are right now, and I had to pick somebody out of the House that represented, you know, at least the most chunk out of the party, I'd have to go with like Jim Jordan or something, right? Right? What do you think? I mean, you got Ohio, +8 Trump, Don. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah.
Iowa, Ohio, something like that.
I think one of the best messaging people, at least in the House, would absolutely be Jim Jordan. I think he does a great job. He just says it. He doesn't care about the labels, and he just presses forward. And that's what I was just saying. That's what you've got to do. But we have so few of them. I really like Byron Donalds, and I saw some conversation in the chat earlier about him. I love him because he's got that same thing. And I don't know who saw the interview yesterday, but remember what I said here a couple of weeks ago? I've said it on my show before as well. Systemic racism is not just that the white liberals say the things that they say. It's the comfort level with which they say it. Look at this woman berating Byron Donalds because, you know, he's from the wrong side. You're not thinking correctly. And she's actually admonishing him for his views. But it was a great example of what people are going to face. If you're going to run for office, you're going to get that kind of stuff. So I like Byron Donalds, but Jim Jordan, I think Jim Jordan does a great job of messaging. He gets it. And I think he must watch your show too, because he understands the numbers and he understands the importance of messaging as well.
Tell you what, it was funny the other day. We were talking about Trump, and somebody said, hey, can he run for speaker? And we had a whole conversation about it, all right? And then all of a sudden, it became a conversation. I'll tell you, there's no doubt. It's just a matter of who's listening and then who's listening, right? So what good is it doing if they're not? It's like Christ said, you hear, but you don't listen, right? So this is a question I think that you could answer better than me. I have my own way of answering it. I'll add to it, I guess, but somebody had said when you were discussing how the people swoop in, right, and destroy campaigns, it was a great question. But don't the candidates have a say in who does what? Answer that question, Don. That's a great question.
That is a great question, and it's really the crux of the whole issue.
Sure is.
Sure, you have a choice, but here's a state apparatus. Here's a state infrastructure. When I say infrastructure, I'm talking about a communications team, a whole campaign management team. I'm talking about the people who own all the email lists. I'm talking about the people who bring in the money. and they've already got money.
Yeah.
So sure, you can say, hey, get out of here. I don't need you guys. I got a great team of my own. They say, oh, really? So you don't want the $250,000? Oh, it's really? So you don't want the built-in infrastructure where we already are kind of in cahoots with the conservative media in this state, or you don't want this to be a part of this fundraising event that we're doing. So they have this whole infrastructure that's very seductive. So it would take somebody with a lot of courage to walk away from that. I would recommend they do, because look what it gets you. So, oh, great. They give you some more money so you can spend on campaign ads that get you no votes, that you end up losing by 30 points. And so it takes a lot of courage to do that. And they have a lot. They have a lot of hard work. Yeah, do the hard work.
They're afraid. So many of them are afraid to do the hard work, Don. Let's be real. They're uncomfortable. Let's look at that district. They're uncomfortable walking around in predominantly African-American communities. I will never forget, I don't want to name him because I don't have his permission, but I will never forget somebody coming to me and saying, listen, we want to make roads in the inner cities in this area. How do we do it? What do you suggest? I gave them a lifelong conservative man. You would never know it. He walks the street. He speaks the language. He's perfect. They were uncomfortable with him, Don, because of the way he is. That's tough crap. He meets with his mama every Sunday after church, and he has Sunday dinner. They all do it. You know what I mean? This is something we share that people like him could convey, and especially because he was young, to the younger population. I can't tell you, looking at Obama, look at Biden's approval rating with African Americans, it's not particularly, it's just not. It's not particularly impressive at all. Definitely not compared to what we saw with Barack Obama, by the way, and definitely not what you would hope for when you're looking at how much supposedly the African American turnout resulted in Joe Biden's victory. I just, whatever you want to call it, but it doesn't comport, is my point. And the younger, below that 45 to 64, is the last vestige of loyalty they got when we're looking at loyalty, right? And we're ranking loyalty to party. Once we get below 45, even more now with females than I ever thought. And look, that bore out in the exit polls. I had no idea black women were going to double their support for Donald Trump. I thought I saw the men coming, but I did not see the women. And that happened. Below 45, working men, African Americans, they are not party loyal. They are not. Especially the 18 to 39. 18 to 30, not party loyal at all. So, I mean, I just don't know where they come up with this stuff, that you're not going to make inroads with those people unless you get out of your comfort zone. You have to. Somebody for the Senate, as I said, who would you replace Mitch McConnell with? You said it. It would be somebody like a Rand Paul, a Ted Cruz. I mean, these are people who are in the base. But if you want likability, John Kennedy. I don't know if he'd even want it because he's too easygoing to have to deal with that crap. But did you hear him with Fauci the other day? I actually fell out of my recliner laughing so hard. Oh, go buy yourself a pony to whatever.
Yeah, he's funny.
Oh, man. I had a heart attack. I was like, what did he just say? Oh, my. He says the darndest things, but you can't. Everybody loves him. It doesn't. Everybody loves John Kennedy. That's true on the Hill. That's true for an average person sitting at home. He's hard to dislike, and he is solid. He's solid.
Yeah, he really is. Yeah, he totally gets it. And you can tell he's one of those guys that comes on with this prepared line, but they're good lines and they
Great
stick.
Lines,
they're short, they're sweet, they're funny, and they stick. And that's the whole thing. Let me just say one more thing on the whole thing about why would people get in with the state thing? Because I mentioned the carrot side of it. So that's the carrot side where, well, do you want access to all this? Do you want this? Do you want this? Do you want this? There's also a stick side of that too. And that stick side is, okay, well, you're not going to get this. You're not going to get this support. You're not going to get this group support. And and not only are they telling you you're not going to get it if you don't go with them, they're telling you they're going to make sure it happens. So there's always an internal fight within the Republican Party. I imagine to some degree on the left it's the same way. But they don't just give you carrots like here's why you should do it. They also give you the stick and tell you why here's what's going to happen to you if you don't. And they will work hard to make sure you don't get that support if you don't go with them.
That's right. And that interview with the Epoch Times I did, that was a couple months back now. about Donald Trump. What could he do to drive the message, to drive the party in his direction? One of the major things I said, Don, because there is no carrot and there is no stick if Donald Trump is taking it all. You understand what I'm saying? And that's damn spam. I don't know about anybody else, but I'm getting spammed like crazy lately. But anyway, that he's kneecapping their ability to do that to people. If they don't have the money to spread around, then they're going to lose the loyalty of certain people anyway, because they're already going to know. They're just going to be realistic about it. Well, they're not raising that much. This much went to Trump's PAC, and he took this much, that could have went to the National Republican Congressional Committee or the National Republican Senatorial Committee. They're going to be limited. And we all know that Mitch McConnell is going to take care of John Thune. We all know Mitch McConnell is going to take care of whatever. And McCarthy's going to take care of whomever. They all know that there's not enough to spread around. You'll know there's not enough donors in the Rolodex to spread around. Well, so-and-so is going to hold an event. I guess that's one less event for me. They're going to know that, folks. And so they're going to lose their willingness to listen to them or to support them. If Kevin McCarthy does not have the bankroll, he won't have the votes. It's that simple. These aren't loyal people. They're not loyal because they're friends with Kevin. This is a joke. Are you kidding? Speaking of which, his approval rating, Don, is just, his favorability rating is just getting worse.
Yeah. So, okay, let me give you another example. You brought up Kevin McCarthy and this intermingling with the state party running candidates' campaigns. So I did one in Pennsylvania. So we were running against Brian Fitzpatrick. And the guy is just an absolute rhino. AOC scores more conservative than he does, and he's the Republican. He is the establishment guy. So anyway, we're running on a shoestring budget. We don't have a lot of money. He's got millions of dollars. We almost beat him, and towards the end, the polling was so close.
You were right in that margin, man. You were right there.
Towards the end, it was so close. This is what people need to understand: the power of the state party and what they can do, and also how people like Kevin McCarthy contribute. So we're really close. A couple weeks before the election, bam, they pick up the phone. They call Kevin McCarthy. He flies in along with Karl Rove. There's a couple other rhinos that came in as well. And they all, they put on this big thing. And so the press is all over them. So they're all over the media. We still, I want to say we lost by like 2 points or something like that. It was still super close. Yeah. But that pushed him over the edge. And it was all because of the state party picking up the phone. And it was all because of guys like Kevin McCarthy, Karl Rove, and all these guys willing to fly in and do what they do. That's the power of going with the state. That's the stick thing. They hit us with a stick because they were like, you are not going to beat us. They spent millions of dollars. We spent less than $20,000, and we almost beat them. But that's the power of it, and that's how it works.
Yeah, wow, what a great example. I forgot about that. That's a perfect example. And going back to, where the candidate can make the decision or not. I got to tell you guys, remember Joe Miller out in Alaska? Down-to-earth guy. Really nice guy. You speak to him. The media labeled him as a extremist, tried to anyway. But really labeled him as an extremist. And I spoke to him several times. We had a relationship, media candidate relationship. And I got to tell you, I never found somebody. He's a very likable guy, very nice guy, very decent, respectful person. Anyway, Rove, after he wins the primary, Lisa Murkowski says, I'm going to write an historic, they sent in the crew to try to sabotage his campaign. And when he started to realize that was going on and he fought back, that's when, like you're talking about, this organization does matter. People say that's not true. It's been reported that Rove didn't cut a deal with Democrats. That's crap. I know it's crap. They absolutely had a backhanded deal, and the Democrat was abandoned. And Murkowski was supported by both organizational structures against Joe Miller. At first he took it because he thought they were legitimate. You got to hear them, guys. When they come to these insurgent candidates, they sound fantastic. Right, Don? Oh, you've done a great job until this point. But now we're going to make, we've done a great job, but we really need to make sure we win this thing. So we're going to send you all this help. Okay. I'm going to send you my best guys. They're going to come in. So-and-so is going to raise for you. I got the best pollster. He's going to poll for you. This guy's going to run it for you. He's going to make sure you got the team around you need. And they destroy it. They wreck it. And the minute Miller realized they were starting to wreck, like, damn, this is intentional. You got to hear how nice smile man Karl Rove can turn into a monster very quickly. He is not a nice guy. All right. So, I mean, this idea, somebody said Karl Rove is the worst thing to happen to the Republican Party in years. Yeah, the man got called the architect for getting his candidate over his incumbent president, who had a 90% approval rating at one point. He is the architect because he won Iowa by 0.2%. Are you kidding me? That was a seat of your pants election. George W. Bush made all the wrong decisions, could have cruised to re-election and changed the electoral map for a generation. And instead, he blew the best opportunity a Republican has had since at least Ronald Reagan. At least. Even before, because Reagan was not even like, Reagan was Reagan. He doesn't even go with the history of, like, the tide of history. Reagan was a whole new animal, just like Obama 08 was a totally different animal. But the difference between Reagan and Obama is Reagan did not get, Obama got pulled back into the norm of political, psephology. He got pulled back into the norm of history. Reagan defied it again in his second term for a second election. So, yeah, I mean, those are all like really great, behind the scenes things. Go ahead.
Let me just add this because this is really important. I want everybody to think about this for a minute. So, Rhino Airlines lands, Kevin McCarthy gets off, Rove and his team, and they shoot on over to the Capitol. This was a Republican event that they held. So what they did was they made it into a fundraising for the state party, right? So they get all these people there. My candidate, so Fitzpatrick's going to be able to speak, obviously, at this. So my candidate, I'm like, go, be there. So he shows up. There's 4 guys standing outside the door waiting for him to show up. As soon as he shows up, it's all on video, they escort him away from the building. He was a Republican running in a primary against another Republican. This was a Republican event, and he was barred from it. That way he can't speak, because their fear was that they were starting to lose in the polls. They had slipped a lot, and they were possibly going to lose this seat to an actual conservative, pro-Trump candidate. This Fitzpatrick had just signed he worked with the Democrats to get some common sense gun reform. He was going to ban bump stocks and some other things, but they barred my candidate, a Republican candidate, from getting into a Republican meeting.
Incredible. Yeah. And that is by far not the only example of that happening. That's actually textbook for Republicans. It is. That's textbook. We've seen that a lot. And then, talking, because a lot of people fired up in the chat room, critical race theory could be an enormous issue. All right. Just to get back to it. By the way, did you see they removed my video on Wednesday?
Yeah.
You believe
Amazing. Yeah, I mean, heaven forbid.
What did I do? I told people the truth?
Heaven forbid we find out what the American people really think about things. We really don't want to put that kind of stuff out there. So, yeah, we better control this stuff and get rid of it, because we don't really want to know what people think. We want to know what CNN thinks or Fauci thinks, or we don't want the American people's input on this thing. And why is that? Because they are legislating against the will of the people. You prove it every show.
Yeah, the bottom line, Don, is I'm not exactly doing anything dangerous here, normally. But I have figured this out, I think. I think what it is that the danger for them is that I show when the media and the people who try to control information that they can't in some instances, Don. They simply cannot. You know what I mean? And no matter what they do, some things like the lab leak and other, get away from them. And they were pushing, because the problem, they say anyway, was over the vaccines. And I got to tell you, what did we do? We talked about the context of the results and that study. That's all we did. So again, I really started to the picture's becoming clear here. If you want to control information, you definitely can't have somebody out there running around explaining when they have had a failure. There's like a leak of the information control, right? That is a major threat to anybody or anything that is attempting to control the flow of information, the exchange of information. That is a major threat. So, I don't know, maybe the handwriting's on the wall. Maybe it's not. I don't know. We'll see,
The media thinks that their role is to filter what people say. So remember the Mika Brzezinski, right? Morning Joe. When she said, this was their whole problem. She summed up in a couple sentences their whole problem with President Donald Trump. Because he could act, but by sending this stuff out on tweets, and he's talking directly to the American people, and he could actually control how people think. And that's our job, she said. One of the most truthful moments of any person on media ever in the history of the world was that. It is their job to control. So what they want is you to give them the data. You give it to us, and then we'll tell everybody what people really think.
That's right.
Because that's our job to control it, not yours. Or we don't need to hear from people talking about these things. We'll tell you what everybody thinks.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And, I have to look back to Kevin McCarthy and his favorability numbers, which are just abysmal.
Good.
I mean, you can't even, you get 4 in 10 of your own party. I mean, that's terrible. And that really, the difference between, I don't know what to explain. Bannon was beating up on him for weeks. Tucker was beating up on him for a good week. And it shows. We can see it. It shows. Independents went from, I don't really know this guy that well, to he's a dirtbag. I mean, I'm sorry. That's it. Very unfavorable elicits something else, folks. That's, I don't like him. I don't agree with him. I don't really like it. I don't like this guy. I don't like this politician. Very unfavorable comports with, I view him as a threat to my worldview, and I don't think he's a good person. That's typically what I strongly, strongly disagree with what he's doing, right? That's a very unfavorable. It simply isn't feasible for Republicans to move forward pretending to be carrying on Trump's message when they have somebody like that leading them in the House of Representatives. It is simply, it's not feasible. And I understand he's been waiting forever. And in fact, if you remember the history, I know you do, but for everybody out there, he thought he was going to be Speaker last time. Yep. And then he couldn't get the votes. Paul Ryan had to be the consensus candidate. I remember I was right in the middle of the whole thing, talking to different people, trying to find out what's going to please this wing, what's going to please that wing. And Paul Ryan was somebody that everybody settled on. But McCarthy thought it was his time. He thought it was his time after post-Boehner era kind of thing. And it wasn't. He couldn't make it happen. And now I know he is waiting and waiting and waiting. It is ridiculous when you have the situation in California the way it is. How is it that Republicans are led by a California Republican? All right? It just doesn't make any sense. Democrats are led by a California Democrat in the House and a New York Democrat in the Senate. If you look at our polling, that represents the core of their base. Republicans have a Kentucky fraud, a fraud from Kentucky, not the legitimate conservative from Kentucky. He's deemed a problem all the time by the other member from Kentucky. He's deemed a problem. And then the one in the House is, from behind enemy lines. I don't know what to tell you if you're a Republican, right? And meanwhile, somebody like Devin Nunes, who, if you're looking for a strong California representative who does represent the base, Devin Nunes, working family, small business owner, farmer, right? I mean, this is just, even Darrell Issa represented Republicans more than Kevin McCarthy does, Don. I mean, this is not fair to the Republican voter, and it's not fair to the truly independent, swingable voter. It's not fair to the American public because they're not given the proper information to make an informed decision. It's rational ignorance from our virtuous republic all over again. I mean, that's what it is. It's rational ignorance. And it's not that they wouldn't make a certain decision if given all the information. They're not given all the information, which goes back to what we're talking about. It's why people like me are such a threat, because This is a problem. They can't have this. They can't have someone like me step out in front of the Politico morning consult poll. They can't have somebody like me step out in front of the Reuters poll or whoever else they love to point to be their driver of information. They believed all of that garbage before 2020. All of their favorite pollsters, they believed them all, and it cost them multiple seats, Don. Seats that obviously were winnable seats and known winnable seats, like Michigan 8, and seats that they didn't even know they could win. In Wisconsin, in Minnesota, in even New Mexico swung 31 points or something like that. One district in New Mexico. Huge swings. Texas 15, Virginia 7. You really thought Abigail wasn't beatable? You were barely holding on? I mean, you have got to be joking. Let's face it, Maria Salazar came out of nowhere. Let's face it. Donald Trump won Maria Salazar, Florida 27. They had no idea that was that close. No clue. No clue. He outperformed. He brought out all these new voters, and they voted R for him. See if she holds on to him.
And that's another big problem with that. And so this is something people need to understand when it comes to the process
of
campaigning.
Believe, Jay, I just got to stop. I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt. Jay, exactly. They believe Luntz.
Yep.
End of story.
Yeah, people like that. Yeah, and Rove. And
I'm trying to follow along. Laura had to go. I don't know if she's able to make it back. I know what she's up to, but I had to go, so I'm trying to follow along with everybody while going back and forth. Go ahead, though, buddy.
Well, I was just going to say, one thing everybody's got to understand is these state parties, when they come in and take over these campaigns, so I'll just use the Michigan example, they've predetermined, right, whether this candidate has any chance whatsoever. Right. In this case, they chose to come in and take over, thinking he had zero chance at all to win, but it was a great fundraising opportunity because of who his opponent was. So we'll rake in a whole bunch of money off of him, and we're not going to give him anything. We're not going to spend anything on it. We're not going to help him in any way at all, except for the fundraising part of it. But this was a great opportunity for them to make money, but they had predetermined that he could not win. Everybody, President Donald Trump. He couldn't win. Remember when they sat around the table with Bill Maher and they all laughed at Skeletor for saying that I think he's going to be the guy. But anyway, they predetermined this. The reason we got Donald Trump for the 2016 nominee was because the Republican Party, the overall National Republican Party, was too weak to stop him, or they would have, because they would have predetermined that he was incapable of winning. It was a joke. There's no way we can have this guy be our guy. They would have stopped him if they could. This Michigan team literally stopped this candidate from even having a chance. He had a chance. The numbers showed it. Everything showed it. So it was definitely a Democrat area, heavy Democrat area. It would have been tough, but fight for it. They just gave up before they literally brought him in already having given up, just looking at what they could get out of it as a state party and for their coffers. And
well, I'll reset it and I'll get him back, but he was making a fantastic point. Let me disconnect, reconnect, and then he'll be able to pop back in, no doubt. But yeah, he was making a fantastic point, and let's see if he's back to be able to make it again. Are you back, my friend? I got you. Okay, let me add you. I don't know why it's here, but it's not here. People can hear you. I know they can hear you. Yeah, but bottom line, Don, you were making a good point. It would have been a heavy lift, but you would have had to think out of the box to do so, And the fact is, they just refused to think out of the box. There you are. I got you. They just refused to think out of the box. Yep. What are you saying? Go connect with Brenda Jones? Yep. What are you talking about? Hello? Mm-hmm. I mean, this is the way it has to be done. Bruce Rauner really did such a great job in 2014. It didn't matter. It was a Republican year. It was the governor of Illinois, folks. Look at the damage he did in Chicago. He didn't do that because it was a Republican year. He did it because he went to Reverend Meeks. He did it because he went to all these other community leaders. The man with a super church, okay? That was this, and he said, give me 4 years. If I let you down, you can kick me out. He did let them down. They kicked him out. But the bottom line was he went out of the box. Totally out of. And by the way, That is why they rioted when Donald Trump went to Chicago. Because they knew Donald Trump was about to pull a Bruce Rauner. They couldn't have that. And they rioted. They'd rather have 4 hurt police officers and shut down free speech and shut down a political event than the unthinkable, which is that they're going to hear the message. That is to them the unthinkable. And if you don't believe me, go and fish through Podesta's emails again. They were terrified of him. They were terrified because he was a celebrity, that he would be able to talk to minorities that they felt they had locked for years. And they were scared to death Donald Trump was going to break the political landscape. I mean, it's right there in the email. Podesta's even getting messages from his friends who are worried. Personal friends who aren't even in politics. Like, listen, I see academics. I see this as a serious issue. All right? It is somebody like a Donald Trump could be viewed as a role model to a black man in urban America. Oh, God forbid they have a role model. Oh, my God. They have somebody to aspire to. If you listen to the hip-hop music genre, you will notice Donald Trump is quite prevalent in their lyrics. I mean, yeah. But this is how they were. This is how scared they were, and he was, in fact, and they were afraid that black men may look at Donald Trump and say, you know what, I want a piece of what he has, and why is that wrong? Why, Don? Why would that be wrong? Other than their political power, why would it be wrong for a younger black man to say, I want the dream. I want my name in gold. Mm-hmm. I believe I can have my name in gold too. And I'm going to go get it. What the hell is wrong with that?
Okay, so I know I'm beaten up on this, but it's really important that people understand the inside workings of all this stuff. So had the state not come in Michigan, we would have made inroads with Brenda Jones. So we found an issue that actually we kind of agreed with her on. So she had some different views than Rashida Tlaib. And there was a lot of friction between those two.
Medicare for all, Don.
Yeah. Okay. So we had found and we were actually, it had to do with the defunding of the police and a position that she took, and we supported that. So anyway, we found an inroad. So we had a great opportunity to hook up with her. We already had set up Dr. Elvita King, who was going to come to the biggest church in Detroit. So the district it was the greater Detroit area. So she was going to come to this massive church side by side with our candidate, come in supporting this candidate, saying, hey, this guy, here's why you guys should listen to him. So we had all this stuff pre-baked. I mean, it was all ready to go, and just bam, it just blew up. I turned that stuff over to the state party. I said, okay, here's some things that I've already pre-set up, and here's some great endorsements and all these kind of things. And they were like, oh, thanks a lot. See ya.
The truth is, Don, they had no interest in winning the race. The only interest they had was mass email lists and all sorts of other crap that they could raise money off of. Look at his filings. They got rich off of him. They got rich.
Yep.
Scam. A total scam. And by the way, Robert's right. Some of this stuff should be criminal fraud because they never intend to do anything with that money that they tell the voters they're going to do. We're going to fight for this seat. We're going to fight for it. No, you're not. The RNC. We're going to stop the steal. No, you're not. All right. I mean, this is unbelievable. It is. It should be, at least. Mm-hmm. It should be criminal fraud, man. It should. All right. Let me see if I missed any. I got a lot of questions when you were gone, Laura. I did. I hit up as much as I could.
He doesn't know where I hide all your questions.
Oh, crap. And it's 11:15. Shouldn't have disappeared. Let's get a few. Let's get a few in there real quick before we got to go, because I know everyone's got to go.
Blonde would like you to know I've learned that Locals is an app where we can support you. I'm 55. It might be helpful for Rich to explain that for listeners of a certain age.
I'm sorry about that. There is an app, and you can view it on web too. But if you get the app, the Locals on, or something that's on Locals on Twitter. You can go to peoplespundit.locals.com on your browser, or you can get the Locals app and search for @peoplespundit, and that will give you access to the Locals community. Don has one too, the Don Smith Show. Basically, all the content creators on Locals do something different to give value to why you should join the community, right? So it's an exchange of ideas and relationships that are totally uncensored. You are not barred or censored like you would be on Twitter for asking me something that maybe Jack Dorsey doesn't agree with, all right? You are not prevented from asking something in a YouTube chat that may get you a visit from the Secret Service or something. And I don't mean because it's bad. I mean because they persecute people now. That's what they do these days. All right. And in return, and right, we have this interaction typically with my community. It's that we build these survey questionnaires. The public polling project, eventually, it would be ideal if the community on Locals paid for the public polling project by itself, but it doesn't. So right now, we still raise money through the website, and it's bigdatapoll.com/public polling project. And that's what this is we went over today. We're starting to release the results of the latest. On Locals, what you get is typically a weekly Zoom call. We hang out. It's cool. And then we go over what we want to do with the questionnaire. And when there's not a survey, we do, after the survey's over, Dom, we're going to do the Federalist Papers. We're going to have like a book club on the Federalist Papers. It's cool. And then Don will start giving insights about the inner machinations of campaigning and how it works with communications. He has his show, the Don Smith Show, on Saturday. Everybody has access to that, but he does Just So You Know. And then you get to submit questions, topics. I mean, there's a relationship there with the media figure or the content creator, whatever it is. There are a lot of different people on Locals that you cannot get on social media. And you also are free. It is a free speech platform. Mm-hmm. You are free to be who you want to be. I am free to do, as long as you're not right. I mean, come on.
We're not.
And we don't mean don't be like Alex Jones. Like, yeah. Alex Jones may have views I don't agree with, but he is right to have them. There's no violence. You don't be violent, but there's not. And Don, you would agree. I mean, you're going to attest to this too. Locals is a serious community. Yep. So the difference between Locals and Twitter, and the difference between and other places, you don't have to worry about that crap. And I know from speaking with the people who run Locals, that is not an issue. Very rarely is there some maniac. It just doesn't happen. And people who support it are there to support you, the work you do, and have a relationship and an interaction with you. There aren't trolls. I mean, there are sometimes people who pay just to be able to take a swipe at you, whatever. But it's not. It is a serious thinking community. I am totally impressed every Zoom call we have.
Oh, yes.
I mean, these are thinking people, thinking men and women, and young people. It's incredible. Diverse. I bet you a blue check marker, big journo on Twitter who follows me and can't stand me, would take his or her last breath if they saw how diverse my community is. I mean, we have all colors, all races, all religions, all creeds, all shapes, all sizes. I'm sure all partisan affiliations. It's just totally different.
We have some
it is
middle.
It's what social media promised to be. Do you remember, Don, when Twitter became a player in politics, and they were like, we promise for more vigorous debate, and it just turned out to be the worst of what it could be.
Yeah, it did. It turned out to be a huge echo chamber. And one of the things that you're noticing right now, if you're paying attention to all the issues that are going on right now, look at Kamala Harris when she's asked about going to the border. Look at Fauci here this week saying, if you're attacking Dr. Fauci, you're attacking science. Look at the thin skin of these people. This is what happens when you create this bubble where you only hear, you're never called a name in this bubble. You're just the name callers. You get to call everybody else names. But look what happens when somebody asks a question you don't like, and they're like, I'm not finished. And they get all flustered, and it's the snowflake thing, right? But yeah, I mean, this is what social media was supposed to be that. And then they started going, ooh, yeah, but this is bad because people are saying the opposite. People are giving different views. And people can't handle it. If you're on the left, you're in this bubble and you can't even handle it. I've been using the term left-wingers on social media. You talk about a social experiment. It's amazing. The left we're called right-wingers every day. Come on, right-wingers. And the reason I'm saying left-wingers is because there's that connotation that it's a crazy winger. You're a winger. It's just so I've been saying left wingers. Oh my goodness, you should see these people. We're not, oh my God, I'm not a left wing. It's like, calm down, everyone. But it's just amazing. But it's because they live in this bubble. So you go on Twitter now, and it's why I don't know what it is, 80%, left wingers now. I don't know what the ratio exactly is, but it's they have no tolerance for anything other than their own view, the way they state it. And that's, again, I'll come back to this. That's why messaging is so important. Yeah. You can pop that bubble.
Yeah, you really can. You really can. And I got to tell you, I mean, there are people who, used to be diehard Republican who are now, interact in our community, used to be diehard Republican, who now are very skeptical of the Republican, whatever you want to call it, the Republican establishment, whatever you want to call it. There are people who used to be diehard liberals, far left, who are now not. I mean, we actually do see minds change in our community and in our. That is the way America used to be. Yeah. I look back to my very first, and I'm not going to talk about it. I'm not dating myself. I look back to my very first presidential election, wondering who I was going to vote for, and the different debate and the way things went. And it was always the general idea: don't talk about politics and religion at the table, right? Because people get upset. But you were still allowed to have these discussions, and you could still persuade each other, based on reason and facts and logic. That is not the case anymore, generally, and it's definitely not the case on social medias. That's why, because it is possible. I want to take that back. What I mean is, it is possible, but these platforms, it's not, and they're making it worse. They're pushing that. I think it's like they're acting as amplifiers for these echo chambers, and that's not the way it. I got to tell you, I start to turn out Twitter a lot lately, because you'll be a happier person. I'm serious. You'll be a happier person. I bet the best thing that could have happened to Donald Trump was that someone took his Twitter account away. I mean, how the hate on that man's Twitter account, even if he said something that was 100% true, and never does anyone come back, Don, and say, you were right, I'm sorry. I knew, for instance, I don't like to wade into stories, but I came on your show, we talked about it, so that I knew that dossier was paid for by the Clinton and DNC combo. It was fake. It was not an intelligence document. They lied to the FISA court. Folks, this information was known very early, pretty early. And I have a tweet that I put up early in this man's administration. And all of these people came out just pouring this crap on me. Like, let me give you a reality check or something I had said. And Mike Cernovich, who also knew, retweeted it because he was like, damn, someone actually tweeted a thread of this, what happened here, right? So he retweeted it. Nobody came back and apologized. Nobody came back and said, ooh, you were right, I'm sorry for calling you those names. There's no way to grow on those platforms, Don. Nobody says, you know what, I made a mistake and I was wrong, I'm sorry. Common decency?
Yep.
That doesn't exist. It's terrible. Yeah. And that's one example. There are many. Donald Trump, how many times did he tweet something? CNN, looks like Obama wiretapped me, right? He was right. And did anybody come back to Donald Trump in his Twitter feed and say, you know what, I'm sorry, Donald. That's messed up, man. That's effed up. They spied on you, man. Sorry. I would hate that to happen to me. And that was always my point with Spygate, which is that if they can do it to Donald Trump, folks, no one's safe. Nobody is safe, folks. Nobody. Exactly. Not you, not your family, not your mother, not your father, not your kids.
Look at the Wuhan lab thing, right? Same thing.
Absolutely.
I mean, we talked about that months ago, and so we were nutbags and we were right wingers and all these things. Right. And now look at it. It's like, oh well, yeah, I guess it could have been. But and to your point, that's the way it works. So look, okay, this week, look at this thing with Mara Gay, right, from the New York Times. So she said what she said. I mean, we saw what she said. We heard what she said. And immediately the New York Times comes out, and what do? They attack anybody who was offended by what she said, anybody who had a problem. It was irresponsibly taken out of context. Think about that for a minute.
It's our fault.
Out of context means she was talking about something completely different, and we're trying to make it about this, or what they're telling you is context is now their view. So if you don't like their view, you're taking it out of context. They're literally trying to claim context for their ideology. That's insane. A lot of people didn't like what she had to say. She said what she said. There's no out of context anything. She said it. She came right out and said it. So this is where we're at right now, where even context now is an ideology. It's not. Context is, was this what she was actually talking about? And it was. So, I mean,
this isn't
really
relative. This isn't relative. This is not a relative conversation. I mean, this is what I was talking. I don't know if you heard it earlier. This is what I was talking about with the school board meeting. This woman, what they were really objecting to, Don, was her factually pointing out dates, instances, of what these people have said. They were objecting to her calling them out. And because they couldn't respond and she had the goods, they said this wasn't a peaceful conversation, that this was actually violence on them. All she was doing was telling the rest of the community and them that you're espousing out. She wasn't being violent about it. You're not going to teach us on so-and-so date, Mr. So-and-so called for the death of our former president. On so-and-so date, Mrs. So-and-so said that if you don't agree with the LGBT community based on faith-based things, you're a homophobe. On this date, so-and-so said that the country's racist and you're a racist if you don't believe it's racist. Critical race theory, basically, right? I mean, they were, and you could, the smugness of these people, the smugness. And Don, God bless this woman. And by the way, again, a Middle Eastern woman. This was not a white NASCAR viewer.
That was the problem. That was the problem.
That was the problem. They had no way to rebut what this woman was saying. No way. Mixed religion family. Some Muslim, some Christian. Yep. Incredible.
Look at how they treat Tim Scott, Senator Tim Scott. That's a huge problem for them. Look at how they treat Ellen West. Look at how they treat Clarence Thomas. Look at how they treated Ben Carson. Look at on and on and on.
Clarence Thomas, that was so bad. Some of this stuff. Oh, it still is to this day.
It's horrible.
To this day.
It's horrific.
All right, let's get one more before we roll. It's 1:26. We're gonna get one more.
Right. Let's see.
Oh, sorry guys.
Treasure Troller. Whitmer's rating fell to 50%. Can it realistically fall more in Michigan's Democratic state?
Yes, and I would argue that Michigan is only a Democratic lean because of its recent history. If the Republican Party does the right thing, it will not be a Democratic state, and it is moving to the right even more. It was always going to be Donald Trump's hardest state to hold, but I think without a doubt, COVID is the only reason for Biden's margin there. Without COVID, not because of COVID, I'm talking about the rules. I can pull the PDF and read off names right now. It happened. Get over it. I just don't know if it was enough to overtake that margin in that state. I believe, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I believe Matt, I only looked at certain things. Matt looked at a lot of other things. So maybe Matt saw things I did not. All right, Matt Brainerd I'm referring to. I'll ask him the next time he's on the show about specifically Michigan. But Whitmer, I have seen her in Signal, who actually did a pretty good job polling this last election. The difference with Signal, though, is that they have a turnout projected model. So they actually show Whitmer getting crushed right now by a generic Republican. Again, they're using, one problem I have, though, Don, is that they're using historical turnout projections only. We never did that. We always use historical turnout projections, but we don't, it's not the end all be all. We have a likely voter screen, this multi-step likely voter screen, and I wonder if I was to do a poll in Michigan, if our likely voter screen would look the same as them. So whether or not our electorate would be projected as Republican as they're projecting it. I think they're projecting like an R5 electorate in 2022. That's possible, by the way. That is 100% possible. I just want to make that clear. Donald Trump got Michigan R+ for the first time since 1988. So that's a big deal. And then our voter file analysis, Don. I mean, Michigan was what? R2 or 4 now? I got to go back and look. We were just looking at Michigan. How could I forget this? But it was R. And I mean, whoa. Pennsylvania is actually now D+6, and some of those other Midwestern states are actually more Republican than, or at least on paper, than Pennsylvania. I don't think that's the case, but because, dirty rolls in Philadelphia, man. Those people don't even exist anymore, Don. They don't. I mean, they don't, man. They don't. I mean, the media wants to pretend like this isn't a problem. It is a problem, and I can prove it to anybody who wants to report me for a community strike. All right? And the fact of the matter is, I have access to records you don't, and I have read them aloud on the show countless times, and I'm tired of doing it. You know, I actually got accused on when I put the voter file. This is when we use StreamYard to stream the show. I actually got accused of faking that screen share when I used the voter file, that national voter file database, and pulled up how many change of address flags were in Fulton County. You know, I actually got accused of that being a fake. I'm like, so wait a minute, did I code some complex database? I mean, what the heck? Incredible lengths these people will go to lie to themselves. When to themselves.
When the information is inconvenient,
when it's right. That's right. So tell people where they can find you, Don. And yes, the answer to that is absolutely. And I would love to poll Michigan myself, because I do think Whitmer probably is below 50 and probably is very, very beatable. There's this silent anti-lockdown and want to punish the lockdowners. You saw it in Pennsylvania, folks. It was there. It was there in droves, and it's not just in rural Pennsylvania and rural Michigan. It's everywhere, and that hurt people in Pennsylvania. That hurt the governor, stripped him of his emergency powers. I absolutely think Whitmer's beatable. I do. Depends on the candidate. But tell everybody where they can find you, Don.
Absolutely. So I'm on Locals. Don Smith Show is my community. So come check it out there. And you're right. I mean, it's a great platform, and I'm kind of new there. So I'd love to have you guys join me there. But it's so interactive. That's the best thing about it. One of the things we've got coming up that we're going to be doing is we're going to CPAC in about a month. Dave Perkins and I. And so in our community, you'd be able to, who do you want to have interviewed? Ted Cruz is going to be there. The president's going to be there. There's going to be a lot of great conservative voices that we can get. And what would you ask him if you had a chance to? So just a real quick thing there. So DonSmithShow.locals.com. You catch me there. DonSmithShow.com is my website. And at Don Smith Show 2. I'm on my third account on Twitter, so you can find me there too. But every Thursday from 5 to 7 p.m. Eastern time, I do a show called The Conversation with Dave Perkins. Last night we had Kevin Jackson on from the Black Sphere. He was the guy who got fired from Fox News as a contributor for saying something not so nice about Christine Blasey Ford. It was pretty funny though. But anyway, great guy and a great friend. So every Thursday from 5 to 7 p.m. Eastern time, we're there. Every Saturday is my show, The Don Smith Show. We've got Peter Husey this week. He's a great mind when it comes to nuclear war and strategizing. He works with the Air Force Association and a lot of other great places, but amazing guy. I think you'll enjoy that segment. Also, we'll play a little bit from the Kevin Jackson interview from last night. And then, of course, you'll be on there. We'll go over some data and some latest economic and political news. So every Saturday from noon to 2 p.m. Eastern time, The Don Smith Show. But best place is follow me on Locals. I'm really enjoying the Locals thing, and I'm trying to grow my community there. So that's where you can get me.
I got about 10 graphics I'm going to Gmail over to you, Don. You pick which ones you want to talk about. Yeah, I have it on good authority, ladies and gentlemen. So when you're thinking about whether to join Don's Locals community and ask people different questions, first of all, Don always gets the best CPAC interviews. All right. He has been since 2010. All right. I mean, at least. And you get everybody walked into Don's booth. And I have it on good authority. He already interviewed Donald Trump. I have it on good authority that Don Smith is owed an interview with Donald Trump. All right, so I keep that fingers crossed for you, buddy. Yeah, fingers crossed. Absolutely. So with that in mind, we're gonna kick rocks, Don. I'll see you on Saturday. I'll make sure I'll shoot you over that stuff, by the way. As always, thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it, my friend.
Bye, everyone.
All the best, Don.
Bye, Don.
All right, you too.
Said hey.
Hey, you heard you. That's Don Smith, ladies and gentlemen. As always, we'll be joining him tomorrow, noon, Eastern Standard Time. Don't miss it. And, of course, we will be doing our Locals gathering later today. I haven't gotten the set exact time yet, but we're not going to get into the Federalist yet. We'll wait a little bit. There's a lot to go over, and we'll have a conversation about the results. I think I figured out how I could show you on Zoom, and this way you can see what I see in the crosstabs, all right? And we can nest things and have a good time, all right? And ask questions, go from there. But with that, I'm going to go. If you like the show, don't forget to like it. All right, if you don't, hit the thumbs down. If you like the videos, subscribe to the channel on YouTube, hit the notification bell. That'll let you know when we're going to go live. You can still follow me on Twitter at peoples_pundit, but definitely think about joining the locals. peoplespundit.locals.com. peoplespundit.locals.com. You'll get a bunch of voter analysis I don't share anywhere else. You'll have input on the questionnaires. You'll get the information before anybody else, and you'll have access to answer questions whenever you'd like. All right, I do my darndest to make sure I do, with the help of Laura over here, who I could not do it without. All right, so we love you. Have a safe weekend. We'll see you soon. Thanks for watching, folks. All the best.
Bye.
Heartbreaker, you're such a love taker, so just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker, so just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. There's rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love, because you're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker, so just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear for knives to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow